what I want to do first is I want to introduce my partner, Ernest Kaufmann. Many of you have met him, but if you haven't, I want to give you some background. Ernest served 3 terms as city councilman, and part of that time as city council president in Huntsville, Alabama. As a member of the city council, Ernest had to make major decisions about their solid waste and recycling operations. Ernest took time to study and visit some of the best programs in the country. He helped start and served on the city's solid waste disposal authority, which has been financially stable for over 30 years. From there, Ernest went on to work with or consult for more than a dozen communities and companies to develop long-term, financially sound programs to handle solid waste and recycling. Over his career, Ernest has permitted and supervised the development or expansion of 15 environmental facilities, including the most recent MSW landfill to be permitted in the state of Georgia, located in Meriwether County. In fact, I want to point out to the listeners, if they have not had a chance to yet, there was an article that was written in the front page of the Gateway Beacon's newspaper last week on that Meriwether County development project. So for people that haven't had a chance to see that yet, I would really encourage you to go and read it for yourself. But frankly, I'm condensing a lifetime worth of experience for Ernest in a few sentences, but I think it's fair to say that there's few people who have been on both sides of the aisle for solid waste discussions more so than Ernest, having served time as an elected official and also being an experienced business executive like he is. So really, I think the best way for us to start off this discussion, Ernest, would be trying to address some of the misinformation that is out there about our project. And maybe the best way for us to do that is give you an opportunity to talk about aspects that our proposal will not contain.
Yeah, what we always see when we start a project, it doesn't matter if it's Texas or Wyoming or Georgia or Alabama, you see a lot of statements made by opposition groups of things that are absolutely just not even close to the facts. What we're not going to be, which I always like to start out telling people what we're not going to be. What we're not going to be is a hazardous waste landfill. What we're not going to be is a 2,700 acre landfill. What we're not going to be is a landfill that fronts on I-20. What we're not going to be is a landfill that accepts coal ash and sewage sludge. What we're not going to be is a landfill that accepts out-of-state waste. And we're certainly not going to be a landfill that takes waste by rail. Now, what we are going to be is a traditional municipal solid waste landfill that will accept the kind of material that you put out on the curb in the afternoons or the mornings, and restaurant waste and stuff coming out of offices. So it's not going to be this, the stuff that a lot of people have been told. We're not going to be coming off of Highway 78, or we're not going to be coming off up north on 100. Actually, we'll be coming off approximately 400 yards after you get off the interstate onto Highway 100. So those are the things we're not going to be. And the rest of our conversations this afternoon are going to talk about how we're going to deal with that and the items that we do take, and things such as our host agreement and the site selection process and all. T?
Absolutely. It's so important that we talk about a little bit about the misinformation that's been spread about the project, and we get an opportunity to tell folks the facts. And really, when we've met with a lot of people in the community, Ernest, oftentimes we get a great question from them saying, well, why did y'all choose this site in Harrelson? What aspects of it are unique? And I think that really helps us tell some of the story about the project. So, Ernest, maybe you could spend a little time talking to people about that.
Okay. Well, I think the one thing that probably separates us from other companies that are doing this kind of work is we don't really select the site. The site selects itself. Now, we look at, first off, what the environmental constraints are for the site. And we do an extensive laptop, desktop study of what we call fatal flaws that would stop the project immediately. That's the most important piece of it. We look for pieces of property that are minimum of 1,000 acres that can pass the fatal flaw aspect of it. And then if it has good transportation in and out, close to an interstate, as we said before, this one is approximately 400 to 500 yards off of the interstate. This site is a lot like the one that we did in Meriwether County, and the fact that it affords us the opportunity to do an industrial park that fronts on the interstate, which if you look at where most successful industrial parks are, they're very close or else fronting on the interstate. It allows us to take a large piece of property and to be able to set up a 300-acre footprint as best we can in the middle of it. Now, what that does, it helps us to isolate the facility so that unless you're going to drive down the entrance road that's more than a mile long, you know, it's not going to be seen, heard, smelled, and a lot of other things. And so it's really because of the topography of this land and all the different elevation changes, it hides itself. Because of the topography of the land, it really dictated exactly where that footprint had to be. So people have said, well, you know, you're going to have a 300-acre footprint and you're going to expand it. Well, we're going to have in the host agreement application where we're not going to expand it beyond that 300 acres. And the additional feature about this site is that because of gas lines and utility lines and streams, this is where the site's going to be. You're not going to be able to expand it. You can't jump over a gas line or utility line and go, you know, continue the landfill. And so when people say, well, you just said it's 300 acres, well, that's what it's going to be and not anymore. So the site is unique. It passed all of the tabletop environmental due diligence, fatal flaw work that we did. And now we've probably spent the last 6 months going back and doing the actual on the ground fatal flaw work.